Welcome to Taking the Myth, your topical, skeptical discussion show. I'm Stephen Knight, and returning as the best goddamn co-host in town is Iram Ramzan. Iram, how are you?
I'm all right. Stefan, how are you?
Not bad. My mum calls me Stefan, actually.
Does she do it in an affectionate or ironic way?
Hard to tell sometimes. I'll tell myself it's affectionate, I think. You know,
That's probably best.
We all tell ourselves little lies to get through, don't we?
Me too.
Where do we start this week? I mean, I suppose this is a question I never thought I'd ask you. So it'd be great to get your general opinion on this. But have you ever asked a child to suck your tongue?
I think I can safely say no. I think I know what this is about, Stephen.
I would hope you do.
Actually, I've heard the rumours. Is it true?
Yeah, I'm glad you know what that's a reference to. Otherwise, this could have gone really wrong, couldn't it? So the Dalai Lama has been in the news. You must have seen that clip that circulated. He's got a young child in front of him. He's showing him affection. He's in the view of the world, cameras, microphones. He sticks his tongue out to this kid and says, "Now suck my tongue."
As you do. Do.
So, on the face of it, this is really inappropriate. It's probably the word. It's very creepy behavior. Never go full pedo, would be my advice to anyone, especially religious figures. But just to be devil's advocate here, there's been a lot of talk about cultural differences. I think if we are going to be charitable, I think we can say it wasn't a serious offer and was potentially an attempt, albeit misguided, at being playful. Are we being too kind or are we being too harsh? What do you reckon?
Right. I'm going to call bollocks on the whole it's a cultural thing because we've heard that excuse used so many times. People say, oh, it's their culture to do X, Y, and Z, when other people in society don't do such a thing. Now, all this stuff about, it's their custom to stick their tongues out in certain situations, that's one thing. But, asking a child to suck your tongue, pretty sure that is not part of their culture. And I've heard other people rebut this as well. They're saying that asking a child to do that to your tongue is not part of the culture. Sticking your tongue might be, but saying that to a child, that's definitely not part of the culture. And I don't want to make any grave accusations here because, he's a rich man. So I don't want to get sued by a monk who wears Gucci loafers. But, I think this sounds like we're all dangerously close to turning a blind eye to something that we saw, because the alternative is like being told that Santa isn't real all over again. I think it's just, it looked awful, and I don't think using culture is a good enough excuse.
Red flag, do you reckon?
Major red flag, major.
This is from the BBC. A top Tibetan leader has defended the Dalai Lama over a video that showed him asking a child to suck his tongue. Apparently, His Holiness often teases people he meets in an innocent and playful way, even in public and before cameras. He regrets the incident.
Okay, how come we've never heard of this practice before? I'm not an expert on the Dalai Lama, but I don't recall reading anything about him teasing people about, shoving certain body parts inside him. Have you?
I can't say I have. I don't follow the career of the Dalai Lama too closely, but I'm pretty sure that would have stuck out, had like his tongue, if it was.
I'm sorry, but this man, right? Okay, if it was some remote village in Tibet, right, then I suppose you could, in a way, excuse it. But this is a man who's known all over the West, has travelled to so many countries. His best bezzy mates with Richard Kier, right? So he knows a thing or two about cultural sensitivities, and he knows what's right and wrong and what looks good and bad in the West. And, doing creepy things with kids here is really frowned upon. So, I mean, I don't think it's really, I can't really excuse this. I really can't. I mean,
I think it's safe to say he won't be doing that again. anytime in
I
the
should
near
bloody
future.
hope not. Jesus.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm always really suspicious of gurus and religious leaders and people, funny clothes, righteous proclamations, large followings always rub me up the wrong way,
Yeah.
because they often rub children up the wrong way. Hmm, yeah.
If this had been anybody else, if this hadn't been the Dalai Lama and just some random bloke who's going around saying that to a child, I mean, that
He'd have to
would,
sign a fucking register.
yeah. I mean, he'd probably be lynched in public. So, what does that tell you? What does that tell you?
All right. Well, just a very brief digression. On Easter Sunday, I travelled down to London, to Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner, the Reformers Tree, more specifically. Had to get on a coach for 5 fucking hours, Iram, because of engineering works on the London, Euston to Manchester line. So I
Oh,
was already
I've
in a
done
bad
that
mood,
coach.
getting up at
I've done
5
I've done
a.m.
the
to get on
coach
the
ride.
National Express. I went to Kellie-Jay Keen's Let Women Speak event in Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner. This comes right after she was assaulted in New Zealand. That was all over the news.
Mm.
And what I found really strange and very surprising was the fact that not a single counter protester turned up. Huge gathering of women. Funnily enough, I often point out it's predominantly middle-aged women, not a criticism, just an observation. This time, lots of young faces in the crowd as well. It feels like this issue is spreading across generations now. However, not a single counter protester. What do you think's happened there? Are the
Was it
you know?
widely publicised?
Yeah, it was. I mean, hundreds of people turned up for Kellie-Jay Keen. It was posted all over social media. I did
Mm.
see some groups say they were intended to turn up, but nobody turned up. And I'm just trying to get a kind of barometer on what that means, if anything. Are they thinking it's not worth it anymore? Are they struggling to get support? I don't think it's that one. Were they all, given it's predominantly students half the time, were they all sent home for Easter,
Oh
maybe?
my God, that's it. It's the Easter holidays. They're all lying in bed, probably not emerging out of their pits until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're all just sleeping,
All right.
Stephen.
Well, if anyone wants to see the footage of that, it's on my YouTube channel. I got some interviews, got another little conversation with Graham Linehan, covered the event in general. You can go and watch that. Yeah, peaceful. I'm glad that nobody got hurt, essentially, but it's always more interesting if you can
You're a
hear
bit
the voices of
disappointed,
other
weren't
people.
you? You
Yes,
wanted a fight. You wanted a
I, I,
scrap.
I always like to go over to the other side and ask them why they're here and get their opinions on record as well. But I can't do that if they're not there.
I wonder if the backlash that they got, after she was viciously assaulted and mobbed in New Zealand. I wonder if that was a turning point. People just thought, yeah, okay, it's not worth it anymore, and nobody finds her quote unquote controversial anymore. That could also be it. Plus,
Well,
lazy students.
I speak when I'm doing these things. I interview people and get them on camera, but I also speak to a large number of people who are not interested in being on camera, but are happy to talk to me and tell me what they think and whatnot. And one thing that kept coming up, talking to these people, is a rumor that had spread that people were intending to come and they decided not to because the police presence was too sizable. There was quite a large police presence.
Ah, so
So I
they're a
mean,
bunch
that's
of pussies then. I think that's
Yep.
what it is.
I
You
commend
were
your
scared of the
ability.
popo.
I commend
That's
your
what it was.
ability to just cut through the noise in such a terse manner, Iram. It's greatly appreciated. Yeah, I mean, I can't confirm that it's anecdotal, it's rumor, but it would make sense, I suppose. But I mean, that obviously that really shows up the New Zealand authorities who completely failed to protect the women attempting to speak at that event as well. That descended into
Mm.
absolute chaos. I'm not The police have a difficult job, but sometimes they could do better at these events, for sure. That's that. What next? What are we talking about next? What we've not spoken about, and I've kind of avoided talking about it in any detail until we get the full picture, and I still feel that way. Is the Nashville school shooting. Now, this was another shooting in America, different day, same shit. And what's interesting about it for me is that it was claimed by the authorities that this shooter had a manifesto, and we are yet to see any contents of this manifesto. Is this significant in any way to you, given the transgender identity of the perpetrator?
It's really strange because usually whenever this has happened, and it has happened far too often, they do release the would be killer or actual killer's manifesto, because they're very keen to show the motives, and why this person did what they did. So I don't understand why. I mean, the police were saying that her journal style rantings don't amount to a manifesto, quote unquote, but still,
Let's make
these
our own mind up.
Yeah, let's jump to conclusions here. Let's give our own theories. What do you think? Is it a trans thing? Is it a woman thing? Is it what exactly is going on here?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, this idea that
No, Stephen, you're supposed to speculate.
let's give a hot take. And yeah, but I mean, you touch on a good point here, because everyone is using this as a jumping off point for their own pet political project. You see, the far left are making it a sympathetic story of a tragic trans character who was molded and scorned by society and almost forced into committing acts of murder. And then you have the sort of far right conservative take that all trans people are mentally ill, gun toting, child killers in waiting. And I think the longer they refuse to release this manifesto, the more people are going to speculate and make shit up and jump to conclusions. So, I mean, I don't have much faith in the FBI really to be open and transparent with it. I don't know if you recall a while back when I think it was Omar Mateen shot up the Pulse nightclub in
Florida.
Orlando. That was like the biggest American mass shooting of all time until the guy in Vegas took the record. But the FBI rather, released transcripts of Omar Mateen's phone calls to the police and redacted every mention of the Caliphate and ISIS and al-Baghdadi, because they felt by doing so it would increase. I mean, the reasoning is, one, it may increase anti-Muslim sentiment, or two, it's providing the killer with a means to propagate his warped worldview.
Yeah, so it's giving them publicity. Yeah, so I understand it from that point of view. You don't want to glorify the killer, and I think the most of the focus really should be on the victims. We don't really hear enough from the victims and their families and what's happened to them. It's all about why this killer did what they did. How did she turn into a monster? Which is, it is all interesting stuff, but at the same time, I just think, I can see why there should be a balance struck between reporting what has happened, why it's happened, and glorifying a mass murderer. I don't think they should be getting any glory for that. That's kind of what they want. They do want to be noted. They want fame and notoriety for what they've done.
Yeah, the thing is as well, and I often make this point, and there's a lot of utopian thinking with things like this. People want perfect solutions to really messy human problems, and there isn't one. There is always going to be a trade-off. There's always going to be a downside. There's always going to be somewhat of collateral damage, for want of a better word. I think you just got to try and get as close as you can to the best possible deal for most people. And for me personally, I accept these arguments that whenever you publish a killer's name or you publish their ideological motivations, you in a way propagate that. But I also think the right to know the truth and have a full understanding of who's trying to kill you and why trumps this idea of dampening their notoriety. So I agree that it's a valid point. I just think we should always err on the side of telling the general public the truth.
No, we should. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying, it's like with serial killers, how many films and documentaries are made about them, and they're always played by good looking actors as well.
Who is your favourite serial killer, by the way? Top five serial killers. Iram.
Oh, okay. Gosh, it's a very tricky one. I think for me, Ted Bundy, very classic.
He's up there, isn't he?
He is up there.
Charismatic,
he's a bit of a babe,
bastard, isn't he?
Yeah. Very easy on the eye as well.
I'm going to cut all this out.
Yes, please do. No, you're not going to cut this out, are you? This is going to be like that Terminator situation again. Ridiculed.
So if you've made it this far,
no.
Hashtag Iram loves Ted Bundy.
Oh my God. You are evil, Stephen. Seriously.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at someone like Charles Manson.
Ugly.
Well, wait. We can't just judge serial killers by looks at this point. There are other factors to contemplate. Yeah. But what he lacked in looks, he made up for in some sweet dance moves. But I mean, technically, Charles Manson didn't kill anyone, and he's one of the most notorious faces in the realm of serial killers, things like that. But he's had several movies, books, adaptations, even featuring in Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the story of Sharon Tate's murder. And I don't see these murderous cults popping up everywhere in terms of inspiration. Do you know what I mean? I think the general public can be trusted more with information than the powers that be assume. Or have I got too much faith in the general public?
I don't know how to answer that one for fear of offending people. So I'm going to plead the fifth here.
Fair enough. Yeah. So on the Nashville shooting, we don't even know what we know or don't know at this moment in time, because we don't have anything to go on in terms of motivation, things like that. So I'm going to remain open-minded. I'm not going. We've been very gender critical.
Yes.
Doesn't mean we should assume this actually has anything to do with this person's transgender identity or gender ideology in any way. I feel people would do well to not exploit the murder of children to run away with whatever political cause they're in favor of. Just wait. You can be just as right when you have all the facts in front of you. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Always best to wait until we know everything that's happened.
Might be worth moving on to a rather bizarre public row we're having in the UK that pertains to golliwogs. Now,
golliwogs.
I've not seen that word for so long. I mean, just to explain to somebody what a gollywog is who might not know, it's essentially a doll-like figure, a character. It's a caricature of black features. It's become, these popped up in I think it was possibly the 70s, maybe earlier. A lot earlier. I'm just looking at Wikipedia now, actually.
Yeah, they're a lot earlier. I'd say like 50s or 60s. My landlady remembers them, so I'd say they were around before the 70s.
So these are like black-faced, huge white eyes, big white smiles, big afro hair. It's a caricature of a black person. And in the modern era, and for the longest time, they have been considered racist, and I think that's fair enough. They're not sold anywhere anymore. The only places I've seen them are in antique shops, funnily enough.
Now that just tells you how outdated they are. And I know people who have said that they've managed to get a gollywog in Australia of all places. So you'd have to travel very far to find one. Put it that way.
I seem to remember the word wog being used as a racial slur back in the 80s. To mean black person. I don't know if that's universal or just a UK thing, but that's obviously a shortened version of gollywog. So what's happened here is that a pub in the UK had several of these on display. So this is the White Hart Inn in Essex. And somebody complained about it. and 6 police officers turned up to remove them from the premises. What are your thoughts? I don't think we'd be having this argument.
Right. Oh, I know. I mean, Golliwog's like so 1990. But anyway, I mean, it's just absolutely bizarre. So I don't disagree with the suggestion that it was an absurd waste of police time for them to be taking these, dolls into custody. Imagine a bunch of Golliwogs in fucking police station.
Get in the back of the van! Get in the fucking van! Oh.
However, there is another point to be made here. So we can believe that the police action is excessive. I think it is a spectacular waste of police time without being obliged to defend, the publicans here as entirely innocent. I just think displaying golliwogs in your pub in 2023 is really stupid at the least, and racist at the most.
I agree.
I mean, I think so. I've heard quite a few people defending this, and I just don't understand their mentality here. I just don't think they get it. They keep saying, 40, 50 years ago, they were an innocent doll. Oh, I remember on the jam jars, you could collect one and you could get a doll if you had enough tokens, blah, blah, blah. And okay, that may well be true, but, the symbolic association of that particular doll and, other items, they can change over time. We live in a society where objects and symbols, they acquire particular meanings. They can change whether you like it or not. And golliwogs do represent, there might be some people who innocuously just remember golliwogs, as a bygone era of, look how great it was living in this day and age. We used to like our Golliwog dolls, and they never thought much about it. But I think if you're displaying a Golliwog so openly in a pub, I think that shows, to me anyway, and it represents like hostility to or contempt for attempts to reduce racial discrimination in Britain, and at worst it's outright bigotry. I mean, I don't think anyone possessing or displaying them should necessarily be a criminal offense. I think we're talking more about manners and morals rather than, say, crime and punishment. And I think also what we need to bear in mind is that I think the pub landlord, wasn't he spotted wearing a Britain First T-shirt as well? And they're a racist group.
I mean, I've read some reports. I've not looked into this, but I've read some reports that he's having some historic Facebook posts he investigated as potential racist communications as well. So
there was a post on Facebook that talked about lynchings. So
is that from him?
Yeah.
Was he talking about lynching black people or?
No, basically, the golliwogs were hung in the pub, and like either he or somebody else in the comment section said, "Oh, didn't they used to hang them back in Mississippi? Ha ha!" So you can't just disassociate that from displaying the golliwogs in the pub. So and especially if he's reportedly also been wearing a Britain First T-shirt, you can't then turn around and say he is. Yeah, he's clearly. I'm going to say that they probably are fucking racist. I'm sorry.
I think so.
You can't display a gollywog and then go around wearing a Britain First T-shirt. Saying,
we don't throw that term around. We don't throw that term around willy nilly on this podcast. But I completely agree with you, and I think as well it's hard to get this into people's heads. So if I was in a pub and I saw some gollywog dolls on display, that would jump out at me like a fucking knife, and I would ask whoever was on the bar, why are them there? I wouldn't be aggressive. I'd find out exactly why, and I'd open dialogue about it. And it, depending on the answer, and I can't possibly imagine what answer would make me go, okay, fair enough, I would decide not to drink in that pub again. I would explain to them like that's really bad optics for many reasons, and they also have the right to ask me to leave if I'm questioning in it. Their premises. I can make up my own mind. I can vote with my wallet, and I can tell other people they're displaying golliwogs or whatever. What I think is excessive is 6 police officers turning up to arrest the golliwogs. They're basically criminalizing owning them, which is weird considering antique shops also sell Nazi paraphernalia that you can legally own. So I don't know where the line is there. But I mean, for me personally, it's like I'm not saying, like, as a free speech absolutist, I'm not saying that things won't offend you and you won't want to question them. That's perfectly normal, and that's more dialogue in my view. What's really concerning above the idea of gollywogs in a pub is the idea of the police getting involved and potentially criminalizing people. I have to draw the line there, and that's where you get into this fucking really horrible territory of saying things almost in defense of horrible people, because the idea of state overreach is so egregious that sometimes it's necessary to defend the rights and liberties of racist Britain First wearing t-shirt knobheads.
You can do both. It doesn't have to be either or. You can say the police involvement was, way too far, but then you can at the same time still say, yeah, it probably is a racist and shouldn't have displayed the dolls. I mean, it's more of maybe a moral matter. I think, you can, if you're not happy about it, you can make your views known to the proprietors and let them know, look, I just think you displaying these dolls is just fucking stupid and makes you look like a fucking racist. And I think if I saw that in a pub I went into, I think I'd probably feel very uncomfortable.
I'd instantly think these aren't my type of people. I'm not staying.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at a car boot sale a couple of weeks ago, just vinyl record hunting, and I came across this stall, and all that was on it was communist propaganda. I'm talking medals, communist medals, and get this, a miniature bust of Putin, of Shit-tin.
Oh my gosh, Shit-tin.
So I found that deeply offensive. And, this is a guy who's currently waging a war in Europe.
Did nobody say anything to him?
I had a look and thought, you know what, I'm not going to buy anything from this guy, and walked away. But, I find that deeply offensive. I find that in such poor taste. I would bet my life on the fact there would have been some British Ukrainians there as well. But do I think the police should turn up and put all these medals and Putin bust in the back of a van? Not really. Is it the same thing as racism? No, of course not. But, in terms of egregious symbols, for me, I think I reserve the right to be as disgusted with communism and Putin as people are with gollywogs. I don't,
Yeah. I think you should have called any Ukrainians and get them to call a bunch of hench Ukrainian blokes over. get them to visit the stall and see what he does.
Well, I'm fascinated. Like whenever I go and visit a new town, I always seek out a little antique shop or something, and I'm fascinated with a Nazi cabinet of all the medals and guns and shit that's in there, because you're kind of looking at the physical embodiment of pure evil. It's like, the Holocaust and Nazis seem so abstract because we've not lived through it. It happened way before we were born, and they become almost mythical in terms of their evil. But when you see like the physical remains of what they did in a cabinet, it's really eerie to see like a belt buckle with a Nazi insignia on and written on it.
I was at some sort of flea market like last year, and pretty sure I saw some Nazi memorabilia, and I was like, okay,
time to leave.
Yeah, and it does jar with you, because of what it represents. You just feel really uncomfortable. But there are people who will buy that stuff online.
That's a debate, though, isn't it? I mean, why
would you want it? Why would you want it? I mean,
I agree.
I mean, like, I just don't get what if you're there and you decide to buy. Oh, I'm going to buy this helmet with Nazi symbol in it. Now, what could you gain from that, unless you think you can flog it on the black market or something, maybe, and get money out of it? Just fair enough, whatever. But if you want to put that in your house, why? What do you get from it?
I get it. Like, I'd be deeply suspicious of anyone collecting Nazi paraphernalia. Like, I'd be very suspicious. But I don't have any argument against the assertion that it's, genuine history. It's like one of the
I mean, if you
most,
want to buy it, fine. But
it's one of the most significant historical events that have occurred in all of humanity. Yeah.
well, then
So
read a
I don't know. I don't
whatever.
want any Nazi shit anywhere near my house. And if I came to someone's house who had any Nazi shit on display, I'd leave very quickly. I always wonder as well about, like period dramas, sorry, whether they make films about the Second World War and they put all these like Nazi flags everywhere and Nazi tableware. They recreate it all for production purposes. That gets stored in a box in a warehouse somewhere. Can you imagine just stumbling across that shit and thinking, what the hell's going on?
Oh my God, yeah.
Anyway, getting sidetracked here. Let's talk about penises, Iram. So we have two views on this. We have the view of Keir Starmer. We have the views of Keir Starmer and the views of Rishi Sunak. I don't know if you saw this, but when asked whether women have penises, Labour leader Keir Starmer said 99.9% of women don't have a penis. So he's leaving himself a little wiggle room there. Yeah, probably should have used a different word. It's too late now. It's gone in. Oh, shouldn't have said that either. Right. So
there's something wrong with you, Steve.
I know. It's completely accidental, I swear. An excuse the police rarely take. So Rishi Sunak has confirmed on an interview that an interview asked him about these comments, and Rishi Sunak said he had a different view from Keir Starmer, and the interviewer pushed and said, well, it's 100% of women don't have a penis, isn't it? And Rishi Sunak responded with, of course. So he's affirming agreement with that. He said something true and basic that most people on the planet know, and we're at a point where he's being praised for it, given the climate created by gender ideologues. It's like him going out on the news and saying, sometimes it rains in Manchester, and everyone's going, fucking brilliant, that's amazing, clapping. He's finally said the thing that needs to be said. What a brave man.
I mean, Keir Starmer 2 years ago, at least we forget, committed to introducing self-declaration for trans people.
Yeah.
And apparently party strategist last month told Sky News that he would lose a general election campaign on day one unless he shifted his position on transgender rights. So his position is to say, 99.9% of women, of course, haven't got a penis. So then, he can easily turn around and appease any like trans activists or lobbyists.
It's cowardice, though, doesn't it? That's the problem. It pleases nobody.
That's just it. I mean, Sir Keir, aren't you getting splinters from sitting on the fence? Like, your ass must be full of splinters by now from sitting on that fence. It's just absolutely ridiculous that, it's 2023 and we're asking our political leaders, does a woman have a penis? You go to a bloody nursery and the kids there will be able to answer that question more definitively for you.
You know what's funny, though? For the longest time, people have been telling people like me who have had an interest in this topic.
In penises?
Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, you've got me there. But they've been saying, like, why do you care about this so much? It doesn't matter. It only involves a tiny minority of the population. They've tried to dismiss the impacts of gender ideology, what it's had on, culture, academia, the media, sports, women's rights, women's spaces. They try and dismiss all that as tiny issues. And what we're finding out really is that these things matter a whole lot to the general population, to the point where elections may now be won or lost on whether the candidate can tell us whether a man or a woman has a penis. So they need to stop gaslighting, and I very rarely use that term. They need to stop gaslighting us with the concerns into believing that this isn't a big issue, because it is. It really matters whether your leaders know what a man or a woman is, because there are so many things that link to that. So many. And we're not going to pretend that there aren't. The fact that they're being asked about this constantly, it just demonstrates the point, isn't it? That the public have noticed this crazy batshit ideology infecting our discourse and politics, and they want to know whether the people running the country have been infected by it also. And I do think if somebody doesn't know whether a man or we're getting a lot of single issue voters here now as well. There are a lot of people who are saying, I'm only going to vote for the person who knows what a woman is, and that's it, and that's their right. There's that hashtag of Labour losing women on Twitter all the time, of women who are like, I will not vote for a party who's pretending not to know what a woman is.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd, and it's not just politicians who are in this conundrum, but this leads probably onto our next topic, and it's also big corporations who are getting involved, and I'm thinking here on the backlash received following Dylan Mulvaney, some prominent trans TikToker. Who I mean, this is Dylan, who Bud Light has promoted Ms. Mulvaney. Various celebrities have called for a boycott of Bud Light because the beer was featured in a social media promotion by this trans influencer, because he or she, I don't know which are the correct pronouns, but Mulvaney has about 11 million followers.
We'll impose an editorial standard on Taking the Myth right now that we will respect a person's birth pronouns, just so there are no confusion. He's a he.
He's so a he. He is so a he.
I mean, just to explain who this guy is, this is a guy who started sending out TikToks. So he just decided he was transitioning to a woman, and he'd do this day one of being a woman thing where he'd post clips of him, womaning in a womanly way. And these things invariably would involve him being a grotesque caricature of what a woman is, giggling and being silly whilst in heels and throwing himself around and being very childlike. And I found it quite jarring. I can't imagine what it must have been like for a woman to see it, and not only see that, but then be told that he's getting all these endorsements. Didn't he get like some fucking Tampax or tampon endorsement or something?
He's got so many, including fucking tampons, even though he doesn't even need a tampon.
He got invited to the where he's going to White House, didn't he?
Yeah, Biden invited him to the White House to talk about trans rights. Fuck knows where he's going to put that tampon. And I don't even want to know. But, then you have Nike as well. And I think that's what really started it. So they asked him to be the face of one of their sports bras, even though he's completely flat-chested, has no breasts that need to be put into a bra. And yeah, Nike thought it'd be a good idea. Hey, let's get this trans person advertising our sports bra. I mean,
there's this weird mentality, isn't it, where they think they need to be progressive and inclusive, and we should include women to do that, sure. And then they go, some bright spark goes, who are the best women? Men.
That's exactly it. I mean, no one is a better woman than a man.
Have you seen that guy, woman? Holy fuck. Professional womaner. Unbelievable womaning skills. He's just basically, in less than 18 months or however long he's been womaning, has managed to understand the full complexity of the female experience and everything that comes with it, to the point that he's celebrated as the best woman. So yeah, he is the final boss of women. Yeah, he is.
He's a parody of a woman.
You and I come from the great British tradition of pantomimes. I don't know if you went to a lot of pantomimes as a kid.
I did, yeah.
But
I liked Aladdin.
Well, there you go. And there was this tradition of men dressing up as women, and there'd be really crude stereotypes of women for the purposes of entertainment. Now, we can have a debate about whether or not that's PC, sure. But that, when I see him womaning on TikTok, that's exactly what I see. He could have been one of the ugly stepsisters in Cinderella in the pantomime for me. And it's not so much like I'm a liberal with this. He can do whatever he wants, endorse whatever he wants, release the TikToks however he wants, dress however you want. But the rest of the world's kind of telling me I have to say that's a woman and use he, she, her pronouns, and accept that I'm looking at a female endorsing Nike rather than a man. So it's the being told to play along thing that annoys me more than anything else. Does it wind you up as a woman to see him taking these spaces and slots that would normally be reserved for an actual woman?
It's taking the piss, is what it is. I mean, the thing is, as young girls already feel self-conscious when they're exercising anyway, and that starts when you're quite young. You have to do PE lessons, and you have to get change in front of everyone. You have to wear horrible PE kits that seem to be so impractical. And you're developing breasts, and your fucking boobs bounce up and down. It's really uncomfortable having to exercise, and especially if boys go past and make fun of you because your boobs are all over the place.
I'm experiencing that myself.
So how can a bloke understand what it's like to experience something like that, and especially someone like a Dylan, it's just, it really is so insulting to women, for him to advertise a sports bra when it's something that should be reserved for women, because that's one of the things that makes us feel comfortable when we're doing exercise. But I think this is no surprise from Nike. I mean, didn't they get in trouble a couple of years ago, because the company was penalizing athletes for becoming pregnant, and it was stopping their payments while they were unable to compete.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there was quite a few of these athletes who basically, I think there was one who was called, what was her name? Alicia Montano, who's a medalist. She apparently, yeah, so she made headlines in 2014 when she ran the 800 meters at the track and field national championships while she was 8 months pregnant. So she did that to show you can still be an elite runner and a mom. But then behind the scenes, she had split from Nike after the company said it was fine. She got pregnant, but we'll just pause your contract and stop paying you. That's what she said.
Well, this is a black woman as well. So this is...
Yeah. So, well, we're all about inclusion and progressive and championing women, except actual biological women.
Yeah, except fucked black pregnant women. Oh, and also slave labor's cool. Child, like the exploitative nature of these sports companies and how they operate, and then they finger wag us about issues of inclusion is incredible.
Yeah, and there was another runner apparently who was told by Nike that she wouldn't get paid again until she returned to racing, and she got pregnant as well. And I mean, there are other companies that have got some sort of record when it comes to treating their female athletes like shit. Like they wouldn't do that to a man because, obviously men can't get pregnant. I mean, it's funny, isn't it, how we all know exactly what a woman is when they can get pregnant. I mean, look at all these progressive celebrities who use a surrogate mom, and they're always going on about how trans women can be women, but then all of a sudden they remember biology when it comes to them having babies. It's funny, that, isn't it?
Well, there's been a huge backlash here, hasn't there, in terms of like he's got an endorsement with Bud Light, like you said. I mean, the most egregious thing to me really is Bud Light being a popular beer in America. That like appalling piss what coming from a place that has so many amazing varieties of hops and craft beer options. The fact that people would choose to drink Bud Light is rather offensive to me. But there seems to be a backlash in that department. I think people need to be careful as well, especially with this Nike thing. I think companies would do well to recognize the spending power of women as a demographic. If you can interest women in general in a product, that product will do fucking amazing. If you can piss women off en masse, that product's going to really struggle, because I think women just organize better than men do in general.
But I wonder if this, in the longer run, will it actually hurt Bud Light or Nike at all? I mean, I I don't know if it would really hurt their profits at all. I mean, maybe it might work in their favor after a while. Any publicity is good publicity for them. I don't know.
Maybe. We shall see. But it looks like they're doing damage control, especially the company behind Bud Light at the moment. I think one of their executives has released a statement which doesn't really say much apart from we're going to crack on making good beer, which is a fucking lie. But it might be worth talking about King of Twitterdom, Elon Musk. We spoke about him a lot in the run up to his Twitter takeover. I think we both were kind of skeptical as to whether or not he could turn Twitter around. I thought it was somewhat of a poison chalice. Very skeptical.
He's fucking around with the blue ticks now. I mean,
stupid. I tried that for a month, and I've noticed. I think it's something like £7 or £8 a month. I think it's like you could get a Netflix subscription and you got a blue tick. And I'm like, who wants to pay for a blue tick? Fucking meaningless. Like, it means nothing if you can pay for it. And all it did, I noticed, was people take the piss out of other people for like, you paid for a blue tick, you loser. And they are correct. It let me post longer videos. That was it. It's silly. I cancelled it. It's of no value whatsoever. But I heard Elon Musk talk about free speech before he took over Twitter, and it didn't strike me that he had a particularly nuanced understanding of free speech. But I think what was clear, I think what's undoubtable now, is that the previous Twitter regime would suppress or censor things for ideological reasons, predominantly left-wing reasons. And the idea was that Elon Musk was going to come in and make some sort of free speech utopia where, it wasn't constrained by far left progressive throttling. And I don't know if you saw this story the other day, but there was a little bit of a spat between Substack, which is the writers' platform, I'm on it, and Twitter. Long story short, Elon Musk had stopped the sharing of Substack links on Twitter. So basically, if you tweeted out a Substack link, people could see it and click on it, but they were unable to like a tweet that contained a link to a Substack article, and they were unable to retweet a tweet that had a Substack article in. So it couldn't be promoted, shared further than your own timeline. Also, if you searched the word Substack into Twitter, it'd only return results for the word newsletter. So here we have one of the biggest social media platforms on the planet actively throttling the spread of what is often legitimate journalism on Substack because he has some sort of personal gripe with like them as a competitor. So that's really concerning, isn't it? If one man can just say that can't be shared, we can't see that because I don't like the fact that they might be in competition with us in terms of a new social media they may or may not be. I mean, this is completely the antithesis of freedom of expression, isn't it?
Yeah, and isn't he now sort of copied the Substack model and now allowing longer form posts? That's not the point of Twitter. The whole point of Twitter was, I know people, complain that, this is not the platform to have nuanced conversation, and they post like entire fucking threads so you can read, about 20 posts, and then, by post 7 I've lost interest. But, the whole point of Twitter was that it's just short, snappy statements. That was it. And, it got you quite good at sort of editing down what you wanted to say, cut the bullshit out.
I love that. When you go over by so many words and then you have to think like, what can I cut here? What can I...
It's actually quite good. It's good for your cognitive skills as well, I think. Really sharpens
Turn
the
that and into an ampersand right away.
Yeah. But I don't know, Twitter is a bit weird ever since Musk took over. I just think he's, he just seems to be all over the place. Don't think he quite gets Twitter, really. He kept thinking of it as some sort of profitable business. He just, just stick to cars.
Elon. Yeah, I don't want Twitter to become a blogging platform because then it's just another blogging platform and it would probably be
what sets you apart from Substack then? You have to have something that sets you apart from another model. Let Substack be Substack, let Let them do what they've got to do, and then as Twitter, do what you're best at. Otherwise, all these platforms are the same, and it really annoys me that they're all copying one another. So now everyone can post stories on Facebook as well as Instagram, and you can all do the same thing. So whatever you do on Instagram, you can do that on Facebook, and whatever you do on Snapchat, you can do on Instagram. Just no.
Well, as of now, it seems like this
I
throttling.
still haven't got a blue tick, and I ain't paying for one.
Yeah, it's pointless. So basically, like they've reversed. It seems like Twitter have now stopped the throttling of Substack. You can share and like Substack links. If one man's ego, and if you can get, I mean, what's to stop him getting pissed off with, say, if the Guardian newspaper, that left-wing rag, writes something about him that he really does not like, there is nothing to stop him saying, you know what, no more Guardian links on Twitter. And he'd be, as the owner of that company, he'd be perfectly in his right to do that. But it completely invalidates any concept of, freedom of expression, in spirit, at least. And he's already demonstrated he is the kind of man to suppress information for personal reasons. So how can he be trusted as some sort of free speech god?
He cannot.
He's got an impossible job. I appreciate that, but this really does not bode well. This idea of him just going, you know what, ban Substack. That's a dangerous thing to be doing, and really gives you an insight into his mentality. I think, have we covered everything? Do we want to see if we got any questions?
I think we have. Oh, Meghan Markle is not coming to the COSA next month.
Is that it now? Are we calling it COSA?
Meg isn't coming to the COSA.
This would be the coronation of King Charlie Boy. I struggle to care. I'm grateful for the extra bank holiday. I won't be watching it or celebrating or anything. I'm not.
I am going to celebrate by going away that weekend.
Anywhere nice?
In honour of His Majesty. Might be going to the Isle of Wight.
Isle of Wight. Lovely.
Yeah, white. Probably full of white supremacists.
You jumping on the ferry at Portsmouth?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I've done that before. It's good fun.
I've not been, but apparently they have a postcard museum, which sounds quite exciting.
Fucking nerd.
What? Excuse me, postcards are really cool and quirky. So if there's anyone out there who agrees with me, please let me know. I think we should revive postcard sending. I think it's nice.
Right.
Well, you ain't getting one, so fuck you.
I'm off the postcard list.
You're off my list now.
Yeah, it is a dying thing, isn't it? I used to love doing that whenever I went to visit anywhere. Get a postcard, whack a stamp on,
Yeah,
send
but stamps cost like a fucking tenner now. So, it's like, might as well just WhatsApp my friends. Hey, at the Isle of Wight, wish you was here.
It's just the idea of like it being open and anyone can read what you're writing, which means that you're never going to write anything of importance or interest.
Well, I mean, a postcard's small anyway. You're not gonna declare your undying love for somebody on a postcard, are you?
It's for something like, Dear Craig, the clinic results are in, and it is AIDS. Unfortunately, you may want to get yourself tested. All the best, Steve. You know what I mean?
Rishi, Iram, just letting you know, yes, the baby is yours. See you soon. I get it. You're never going to have anything serious in a postcard, but that's the whole point. It's supposed to be just a little snapshot where you are and just a reminder of a fun time.
People collect it, ephemera, and that.
Well, you're not getting one, all right?
I've talked myself off Iram's postcard list for sure. All right, you've got to go soon, haven't you? So maybe we should just wrap it up. I mean, fuck Meghan. We've covered that, haven't we? That's it. I think that's it. That's all needs to be said.
We'll be done for like a hate crime. Yeah, I think we have.
I have no interest in her, and I don't particularly like her much. I do think the utter obsession from the media with her is a bit much. I think I think the worst thing you could do to her is ignore
her. Yeah,
she'd hate that.
Oh my god. Yeah, the worst. I mean, that's just it with her, isn't it? She likes the attention, although she has been very quiet lately. But let's just hope that Harry doesn't turn up to the Cozza and starts
Cozza.
whinging about his frostbitten penis.
Yeah. Or do you know how many Taliban insurgents I've killed? That was clever, wasn't it?
I mean, I think the popularity, especially with this king, has sort of gone down compared to the late Queen. I mean, last year for the Jubilee, there were like tens of thousands of applications for street parties, and apparently this year it's only been like 200 and something.
Oh, okay.
So
interesting. When is it? Is it the first
May the
weekend of May?
6th.
May the
Yeah.
6th, and we get the Friday and the Monday off, don't we?
Unless you work as a journalist, then you probably don't. But yeah, theoretically, yes, it's a bank holiday.
Okay, amen. I'll drink to that. To Charlie boy.
But not Bud Light.
But no, certainly not Bud Light. Sat there drinking Bud Light in my Nike sports bra. On that
That's
bit
an
of
image.
imagery, I'll enjoy your fucking postcard museum.
Thank you.